Sarah and Michael thought they were doing everything right. 2 college degrees, steady jobs in San Diego, and a combined income that put them squarely in the middle class. At 32, they were finally ready to buy their first home and start a family. That's the California dream, right? But after 6 months of searching, the crushing reality set in. The smallest homes in their area started at $800,000. Their real estate agent broke the news. They'd need to earn at least $200,000 a year to afford anything within an hour of their jobs. And they aren't alone. All across California, the dream of home ownership is slipping away. In San Francisco, you now need a staggering $350,000 yearly salary to afford a median home, while the typical family makes just $110,000. The math simply doesn't work anymore. This impossible equation has forced nearly 500,000 residents to flee the state in the last 3 years alone. For the first time in history, California is watching its population shrink 3 years in a row. How did a place once defined by opportunity become so unaffordable that even successful professionals can't make it work? California home prices have exploded 1,500% since 1980, far outpacing anything seen elsewhere in America. The California dream is dying. But why? This is the impossible dream, why living in California has become unattainable.
Is high, or the highest in the country, is the cost of housing.
The number of people in California who can afford to buy a home continues to fall.
California is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Sunny beaches, iconic cities, amazing national parks. The state looks like paradise. But if you want to live here, paradise comes with a shocking price tag. To buy a normal house in Los Angeles, a family needs to earn at least $225,000 a year. In San Francisco, that number jumps to over $350,000 a year. Compare this to what most households actually make in these cities, around $110,000. It's clear that buying a home is now impossible for most Californians. Some people might say that this is only happening in big cities like San Francisco or Los Angeles. That's simply not true. Since 2020, house prices in Sacramento, San Diego, and even Fresno have gone up by over 40%, while wages only grew by 11%. Buying a home is getting harder and harder for most Californians, especially young Californians. It's rough, really rough. Many can't find anything they can afford. Even with 2 good incomes, they're completely priced out of the market. Young people haven't been able to benefit from skyrocketing home values and are constantly trying to catch up. The result? The percentage of Californians under 35 who own homes has dropped by nearly 30% since 2000. The craziest example of California's housing crisis was a house in San Jose. It had fire damage, no working bathroom, and serious structural problems. But that didn't stop a bidding war, with someone paying $1.2 million for it. But what if you just want to rent? Surely you can find a decent place to rent. Sadly, no. The average rent in San Francisco is over $3,500 a month, while Los Angeles isn't far behind at $2,900. In the past, California rents went up by a reasonable amount each year, but since 2020, rents have shot up by over 10% per year. People are stuck at a tough spot. They're trying to pay 2025 rental prices with 2010 paychecks. And it would be one thing if people could actually find a place to live, but the demand for rental units is endless. Every rental gets dozens, if not hundreds of applications. When apartments have viewings, lines wrap around the block. Over 150 people often apply for a single apartment in popular areas. It's incredibly hard. People spend months searching on Facebook groups, Craigslist, everywhere. There's just too much competition. At the end of the day, renters aren't fighting for anything fancy, just a place to live, a place to sleep, and a place to call home. So, why is California real estate out of control? Let's break down the 3 main causes that have created this perfect storm. The tech industry has completely transformed Northern California's housing market since their dot-com boom of the late 1990s. When tech giants like Google, Apple, and Meta paid their employees average salaries of $180,000, these workers can afford to pay astronomical rents and outbid regular workers for homes. This has created a 2-tier economy where tech workers live comfortably while teachers, firefighters, and retail workers can't afford to live in the communities they serve. In Southern California, the entertainment industry creates the same problem. Celebrity purchases of $30 million mansions drag up the value of every property for miles around. Some previously affordable neighborhoods have seen average prices triple after just a few famous people move in. Both tech and entertainment create a ripple effect of gentrification. As prime areas become too expensive, higher income people move to what used to be middle class neighborhoods, pushing out the original residents who can no longer afford to stay. But there's even a bigger problem. California is simply not building enough housing. Since 1970, the number of homes being built has not kept pace with California's growing population. Around the year 2000, building rates dropped dramatically, creating a huge supply shortage that we still feel today. Why aren't they building more? Well, it's not for the lack of land. California has some of the strongest NIMBY movements in the country. NIMBY stands for Not in My Backyard, people who fight against new housing in their neighborhoods. Communities have chosen to preserve neighborhood character instead of allowing more housing to be built. For example, San Francisco and Los Angeles have about 18,000 and 8,000 people per square mile. Compare this to New York City with 27,000, Paris with 56,000, and Barcelona with 41,000 people per square mile. The difference is shocking. California cities could easily house many more people by building taller buildings and more apartments, but local politics makes this nearly impossible. California has some of the strictest zoning laws in the country. In most residential areas, it's actually against the law to build anything but a single-family home. Even though California is going through an extreme housing crisis, 2023 saw the lowest number of housing permits issued since 2012. Strong neighborhood opposition and government red tape lead to extremely long approval times for new housing. Now here's a shocking comparison. Getting approval for a medium-sized apartment building in Los Angeles takes about 8 years. In San Francisco, the whole process can take over 10 years. Meanwhile, similar projects in Houston or Phoenix might be approved in less than a year. These long wait times have made it impossible for the state to build enough homes. California is on track to build 40% fewer homes than needed to meet its own affordable housing goals. The third major cause making California's housing crisis worse is outdated tax policy, especially something called Proposition 13. In 1978, California voters passed Proposition 13, which completely changed how property taxes work in the state. Prop 13 limits property tax increases to just 2% per year, no matter how much a property's value goes up. Here's what that means in real life. If you bought a home in 1980 for $100,000, your property taxes would be based on roughly that amount, with small increases each year. Meanwhile, your new neighbor who just bought an identical house for $2 million is paying property taxes on the full $2 million value. This creates three major problems. First, it discourages older homeowners from selling, limiting housing supply. Second, it creates huge tax differences between neighbors. And third, it encourages people to hold on to properties as investments rather than selling them. Unlike places like Texas, which has high property taxes but no state income tax, California has both high income taxes and artificially low property taxes for long-term owners. As investor Charlie Munger famously said, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome." Here's what we have: a tax system that protects and rewards existing homeowners while making it nearly impossible for new buyers to enter the market. Prop 13 also creates budget shortfalls for local governments. They try to make up for this by charging huge fees on new development, sometimes over $150,000 per unit. These fees get passed on to new home buyers, making prices even higher. The combination of tech money, restrictive zoning, and unfair tax policy has created another serious problem. It's actively hurting California's economy. Companies now report trouble hiring talent because of housing costs. Workers endure exhausting commutes because they can't afford to live near their jobs. And more Californians are simply leaving. For the first time since becoming a state, California lost population for 3 years in a row, with most people saying housing costs were the main reason. Many families love California. It was their home, but they were paying $3,500 for a 2-bedroom apartment, while the same kind of house in Arizona cost them $1,800 a month to own. They had no choice but to leave. The exodus is changing who lives in the state. Young families and middle-class workers are being pushed out. The state is increasingly divided between the very wealthy and those living in poverty. The middle class, the backbone of any healthy economy, is disappearing from California. So, who's to blame? Republicans? Democrats? The truth might surprise you. I can already imagine the comments blaming different political parties for these problems, but in reality, this crisis has lasted for decades under both parties. Democrat Jerry Brown's first time as governor in the 1970s and 80s saw modest housing price increases during overall economic growth. Republican Pete Wilson saw the beginning of a housing boom. Under his leadership, housing prices rose significantly. Democrat Gray Davis, prices continue to rise. Republican Arnold Schwarzenegger, housing continued to climb, only slowing down because of the financial crisis. Democrats Jerry Brown again and Gavin Newsom, housing still out of control. If you bought a home in 1992 for $500,000, today it would be worth over $2.5 million. And if you were born after 1992, you probably don't own a home and may never. The conclusion is simple. This goes beyond political parties. California's housing crisis runs deep. It can't be solved by simply blaming one side or the other. So, what will it take to fix California's housing crisis? Here are 5 solutions that could actually work. First, California needs to build more housing, a lot more. That means changing zoning laws to allow for more apartments and townhouses in existing neighborhoods. The idea that neighborhoods can only have single-family homes needs to end. Second, streamlining the approval process. Projects that meet basic requirements should be approved automatically without endless meetings and lawsuits. Third, reforming Proposition 13 to fix its worst problems, especially for investment properties and second homes, while protecting primary homes of seniors and moderate-income homeowners. Fourth, using housing subsidies to help first-time home buyers enter the market and increase affordable housing construction. And finally, investing in public transportation to make it practical for people to live further from job centers and still have a reasonable quality of life. So, what can you do about it? If you're struggling with housing costs yourself, know that you're not alone, and it's not your fault. The first step to solving any problem is understanding why it exists. The California housing crisis wasn't created overnight, and it won't be solved overnight either. If you liked our video, please give us a like and subscribe. And thanks.